All right, let's call to order Town of Basalt, Planning and Zoning Commission, Tuesday, August 19th, 2025.
All right.
Roll call, please.
Thank you. Mike Horvath,
Here.
Ben Firestein,
Here.
Katie Hostetler is not here. Bill Marin,
Yo.
Eric Vozick is not here yet. Cindy Hirschfield is not here. Rob Levitt,
Yes.
Bob Kaplan,
Here.
and Kyle Oberketter. Great. We have a quorum. We do not have our chair at the moment. Would someone like to make a motion to nominate someone to chair the meeting until
We have
Eric
a pro
arrives?
tem, right?
I thought I was pro tem.
Oh, yeah. Great.
I nominate the pro tem.
Thank you very much for the record. Fabulous. All right. Thank you, Bill, for taking on the duty.
All right, no problem. All right, item 2A, continued public hearing, 202 and 2024 Ridge Road, a minor subdivision PUD amendment. Carlton.
Good evening, everybody. We're here to discuss PUD amendment, slope review for an adjustment to the pedestrian and bicycle public access easement, and now a lot line adjustment on the approved and recorded plat for properties 202 and 204 Ridge Road, also known as lots 1 and 2 of the Basalt Highlands PUD. This public hearing is a continuation from the July 15th public hearing where we discussed a slightly different application for an adjustment to the pedestrian and bicycle public access easement, as well as a building envelope adjustment. Since we last met, the applicant team has heard the neighbors' concerns as well as the direction from Planning and Zoning Commission to make adjustments both to the geographic location of that access easement as well as an adjustment to the building envelope to no longer be moved up the slope but remain in its original location per the original plat for the property. I'll give a little bit of background for those of you who are not here in July, and just for the record as well. Lots 1 and 2 of the Basalt Highlands PUD were originally created in 1995 as part of the 6-lot subdivision accessed by Ridge Road, known as the Basalt Highlands. In 2006, a private driveway and parking easement was agreed upon between the owners of lots 1 and 2, and the existing pedestrian and bicycle public access easement, which existed where that driveway now exists, was between the years 2006 and 2021 impeded by a boulder retaining wall, which now exists on the property. That retaining wall was believed to be constructed by the owner of Lot 2, and in about 2021, the owners of Lot 1, also known as 202 Ridge Road, sought to resolve some trespassing that was occurring on Lot 1 due to the impeding of the public access easement by the retaining wall. The town of Basalt reached out to try to resolve this issue to the property owner of Lot 2, and during the discussions that ensued was unable to facilitate a resolution to this property conflict. Now that a sole property owner, a Mr. Mayman, as the beneficiary, possesses ownership to both lots 1 and 2, the applicant team has come to the town to seek to resolve this property conflict, which has been kind of the impetus for this application. Again, we are bringing this application back from the July 15th meeting with several changes, which will illustrate. The applicant team has worked iteratively with staff as well as with a new surveyor to accommodate the changes as requested by the neighbors as well as by the Planning and Zoning Commission. We received an initial draft for that plat at the end of last week, and then some minor changes have been made in the interim since Thursday, and those are illustrated on the plats that are in front of you. Staff believes that these changes were minor in scope, namely some changes to the notes on the plat, and as well as some changes to the line weights to make the plat more legible. An additional sheet has also been added since Thursday to increase, again, legibility for the record. Discussion items for Planning and Zoning Commission. The proposed easement meets the intent and purposes of the PUD agreement. In regard to the trail easement relocation, the town of Basalt, again, has an interest in relocation of the public trail easement to resolve the current inaccessibility due to the retaining wall on the property. Again, with the new plat, that retaining wall is a little bit more legible from what you guys saw in July, as well as from what was in your packets from last week. Additionally, staff finds that minimal vegetation removal would be needed to relocate the trail as shown on the documents in front of you. In regard to the encroachment of the retaining wall, staff has identified that the retaining wall constructed by the prior owner of Lot 2 encroaches onto Lot 1. The applicant team has been amenable to a lot line adjustment, which you'll see on the plats in front of you. It was also included as part of the packet from the end of last week. And staff has deemed that the proposed lot line adjustment would, while not entirely, would sufficiently rectify this encroachment. And further on the lot line adjustment, the proposed adjustment to the lot line between lots 1 and 2 would relocate the lot line to the west on the southern portion of the property to accommodate, again, that retaining wall encroachment. And then at the northern end of the property, there would be kind of an exchange of property with the lot line moving from the west to the east side of that existing pedestrian access easement. And staff, again, feels that this, as illustrated on the attached survey, is sufficient to rectify the encroachment as shown. Staff recommends that the Planning and Zoning Commission ask questions of staff and the applicant, hear public comment, discuss the development application, and provide a recommendation to Town Council regarding the application. Planning and Zoning Commission may either recommend approval, recommend denial, recommend approval with further conditions, or continue the public hearing if additional information is requested. The application meets town code and the requirements of the PUD agreement, subject to compliance with the following draft conditions, which were included in your staff packet. I would be happy to recite any or all of those if Planning and Zoning Commission wishes, but staff recommends that P&Z approve the application with the drafted conditions as shown. We do have Mr. Dave Giannichetti from the applicant team online, and I guess this would be an appropriate time that he could share any further information, and then we will open up for public comment.
Thank you, Carlton. I believe also Mr. Meeman is there, and if he would like to speak, if he is there. If not, I would be more than happy to speak.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Tom Mayman. I'm the owner of lots 1 and 2. My wife and I bought 202 about 18 months ago, and during the due diligence process found out that there was an encroachment issue and a subsequent lawsuit ensuing against the town of Basalt, the HOA, and Mr. Brower, who was my predecessor. He had built the retaining wall, as I understand it, to accommodate the needs of a fire truck turning around in that property to service lots 1 and lots 2. What that precipitated was moving the footpath, sort of organically now moved onto what was then the Vernon's property, and they lost 2 or 3 sales as a result of it, and consequently there was no really good solution. So we very much liked that property and wanted to buy it, but in discussions with the town of Basalt, the only solution really was to buy the property next door, and in owning both properties, we could resolve it. Regrettably, I suffered a stroke a little while ago, so it made the use of that property, which is a stare everywhere you look, kind of not so attractive. And that's also the reason that I wasn't available at the last meeting, which I understand caused a certain amount of angst to my dear neighbors here, and I very much apologize for that. Anyway, subsequent to that, we have retooled and hired a new surveyor, and with the town of Basalt, we've moved the footpath basically all the way over to back to the other side of it, and it's really about 8 feet now from where it is supposed to be, so that the public can access the BLM land with, I think, a good deal of safety now, whereas before, it was very precipitous to walk anywhere close to that boulder wall. So let me see, I think Dave gave me some other notes here as well. So including the lot line adjustment to lots 1 and 2, the proposed new trail, the access easement is on lot 1, running along the entire lot line of 1 and 2. And the retaining wall, now encroachment issue, will be sufficiently rectified. So the adjustments of the lot line means that the whole of the public access easement now will sit on what is lot 1 or 204 Ridge Road, which I think in future will avoid any further confusions. I thought we'd had a lot of time to resolve this issue, but now we find ourselves in a position where we need to sell the property, and so that's where we are. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you. All right, let's start with Bob, have questions of staff or the applicant?
Just one clarification to staff, and that is that the building envelope has not been moved. Is that correct? The building envelope has not been moved, correct?
From the existing building envelope, that is correct. From the July 15th meeting, it has gone back to the existing building
Back to
envelope.
the existing.
Yep. If you remember from the July 15th meeting, the original proposal also included moving the building slightly up the property.
Right.
That also created a little bit of a buffer between the proposed easement. But after discussion with the neighbors, the applicant has been amenable to keeping the existing building envelope.
Okay. That's,
All right, first. Rob, question?
Is the letter for Mr. Infante something we need to concern ourselves with?
So Mr. Infante and I spoke earlier today, and Mr. Infante is concerned with addressing the private access between lots 3, 2, and 1, which there's a little bit of a concern here. So however, it is not related to the application at hand. So in 2006, there was a private access agreement signed between lots 2 and 1. So that was Mr. Brower and Mr. Vernon. We have a copy of that contract on file with the town. However, that agreement was never recorded with Eagle County and is not a part of the property file per the county. It's not a recorded document. And upon discovery of that, that document also references a previous private agreement between lots 3 and 2, which initially eased the property for lot 2 to construct a driveway where it currently exists, if you remember from the site visit. That private document that's referenced is not on file with the town, and neither private property owner has a copy of that agreement either. Additionally, that agreement is not recorded with Eagle County. So the town has encouraged the private property owners, who are all part and parcel to this discussion, to resolve the private access easement questions while this is on the top of the pile and top of mind for everybody. However, that private access easement is not a part of this application. Resolving that is not a part of this application. movement of the public access easement off of the driveway further unencumbers that piece of property. And so, again, I think Mr. Infante sees this as an opportunity to resolve the issue, and it has provided comment in lieu of his ability to be here this evening. But staff would encourage Planning and Zoning Commission to consider that separate from the issue at hand, which are the lot line adjustment and the adjustment to the public access easement.
As far as the public access goes, is there going to be any new signage up there?
That was one of the draft conditions that was suggested per staff, was that, let me give you the exact language here. So the applicant shall commit to financing the costs associated with rerouting the trail to the west and the restoration of the existing trail system. These costs should include any necessary signage to direct the public to the alignment. So this would be a written condition as a part of the approval, should you accept the draft conditions that staff has provided.
Thanks.
Thank you, Rob. Ben, questions?
Does the private access agreement that you were referring to also affect Lot 4?
To my understanding, it does not. Again, only one of the two private access agreements is on file with the town. The one that is on file with the town, while it references Lot 3, is between the previous owners of Lot 2 and 1 to ease property from what was the Brower property, or Lot 2, to Lot 1 for access off of that driveway. We don't have any documentation of the easement from 3 to 2, so I can't
Or
speak to
3
that.
to 4?
And I don't know if there's an easement from 3 to 4.
But the trail agreements, the trail access that we're referring to as part of this application is on title and on file with town.
Correct.
Okay.
It's recorded.
Are there any photos of the retaining wall that could be relevant today for the means of exposure or concern with public travel across the top of the retaining wall?
I don't have a picture. We did conduct a site visit earlier this summer. No, that's okay. That might be something that could be accessed via the internet right now. I can take a peek for you, but
At no point would a pedestrian be high above in a considerable fall distance onto the property of Lot 2.
On top of it.
I can speak to that. Sure. So the retaining wall is very high, and there is a fence that runs along the top of the retaining wall, as well as some significant trees and foliage. So it would be very difficult to get to the edge of the retaining wall. The retaining wall also steps down, so it is not a sheer drop. So I think you would need a ladder to climb the fence, and you'd need a machete to cut back some branches in order to fall down that wall, I would say.
and with the updated survey, I would point to that for a little bit of reference. And I did just check. There is no street view that I could pull up for you while sitting in this room here. But the new survey does show both the trees and the stepped nature, the terraced nature of the retaining wall there. So apologies there, we don't have any.
I do see the trees located here on survey and the step nature of the walls. I just didn't know how bushy those trees are or if pedestrians.
They're relatively mature, but that distance is somewhere in the, if you're speaking from where the retaining wall would be down to where the drive would be, somewhere in the realm of 15 feet.
That's your questions, Ben?
That's my questions.
Okay, Mike, questions?
No questions at this time.
All right, thank you. Now, we're going to open this up for public comment. Let's open up the public comment portion of this meeting at 6:26. If anyone in the audience wants to make a presentation, come up to the microphone and state your name and where you live, and keep it to 3 minutes if you can.
Thank you. I'm Ted Lee. I'm in Lot 4 with my partner, Mark Zakula. First, thank you all for considering our comments last time and for Carlton and the staff working with our neighbors, the Maymans, to come to a solution. I had hoped tonight to come to you and say we've got a written consent signed by all of our members. Two things have happened. The diagram changed just a little. So we had referenced the last draft and we couldn't just change it to the new draft yet. So we haven't seen the draft that came in this afternoon. I understand it's merely some notes and things, but we haven't reviewed that yet. Conditionally, everybody in our subdivision has said they expect they will approve of this, but they've got to look at that. And then Bill Infante, who's the owner of Lot 3, wrote the email message that said there's a question on this little clip on of the property that Carlton mentioned about easements. And frankly, as I understand from him, remember the cobblestone road you walked up? A tiny bit of that is on Lot 3. He wants to make certain he hasn't given away his underlying property rights to that clip of property. And he can't find the document that shows this. So he wrote in his message to Carlton, to all of us, that he can't approve tonight of that. I think we're going to get there. I want to make sure that my neighbors get to sell when they want to sell, if that's what their goal is. I don't have the solution to that yet. We're happy, Mark and I are happy, and the McMahons who own lots 5 and 6 have said they're satisfied with the proposed placement of the easement, frankly, back over to the other side of Lot 1. So, and thank you all for working on that too. But we don't have an approval yet. Everyone's told me, tell them we like where it's going. So I don't know what you all do with that. But that's the first two things I want to say. But I want to ask you two questions. One is, am I going to be back here in 5 years having this problem again, where the new owner of lot number 1 is going to come back and ask you to move the easement back over to my side of the property? Is there anything you can do to record that it's been heard, it's been resolved, and that's where it stays? I don't know how this process works, so I'm asking the question.
We'll get to that when we make our comments.
Okay.
I'll address that.
The only other thing I would say is that there's a comment of the requirements, one of which is that the applicant, the Maymans, Carlton summarized it exactly right about paying for the improvements or the signage or whatever those words are. It's actually, it says commit to do those things. It would be swell if you could come up with a drop dead date when that has to be done. I don't mean tomorrow, I don't mean a month from now, but so that in 20 years we're not back here still saying people are using the bandit trails. And I don't know what you can do about that, if it's 3 months, 6 months or something.
All right, thank you.
That's all we have. Thank you very much.
Any other comments? Any comments out in internet land? James?
No, there's nobody from the public on the internet.
Okay, good. So, what? I didn't have any questions. I didn't have any questions. So I have comments, but we'll get there. We'll get there. All right, let's close public comments at 6:30 and move on to commissioner comments. Mike, would you like to start?
I was not here in July. What has been presented today seems reasonable to me, and with the information I have, but at this time I have no comments.
All right, thank you. Ben?
I was also not here in July, and what has presented appears reasonable. I have no further comments.
All right, thanks. Rob, comments?
I feel like the concerns we had in July have been addressed. If the neighbors are happy, then I'm happy. I would like to see that in writing officially before we made any kind of motion, or that would be part of the motion, I think.
Well, hold that thought.
Okay.
Bob?
I'm also happy with the outcome as long as the parties are. I do want to reiterate that I think the signage is very important because the distance between the building envelope and the wall is very narrow. And in today's world, somebody's going to maximize their building on that building wall. I think hikers and users will get confused that the trail is this close to the house. So I think putting that signage in place sooner than later is very important.
All right, thank you.
That's the only comment I have.
Thank you. First off, I do have a bunch of comments to make. I think Bill Infante's question is salient, but kind of beyond the scope of our understanding of the legal requirements. I don't even know if we could even make that as a part of an attachment to the conditions on this. So I don't know how to handle that part. I think when we make a motion, we could have this read through by the city attorney, will be anyway, but we might want to add that into whoever makes our conditions that part happens. The signage component, I agree with everyone on that. I think that needs to be very clearly defined, because for what is said there, if I was acting as a developer, I'd put up a 3x5 card that was handwritten that said trail, because that would satisfy the requirement. So I think that it needs to be much more clearly defined as to be acceptable to town staff. And I also do think that whatever signage there is has to be visible from the public right away, meaning the cul-de-sac, not just the driveway, because people won't walk up the driveway. Right. Because in old time Basalt, you could have gotten shot doing that. And so a lot of people won't want to do that. So we need to, right from the public access, know where you can go and where you can't go.
Yeah.
So I think that should be part of whatever motion we make. I won't make that motion. And as far as the HOA is concerned about being back here, this is a PUD amendment. This is not a simple or quick thing to do. And I really doubt we'll see this again, though you never know. I think this, I don't know how to answer that unless staff could answer the surety of not being, this is a town of rich people, and rich people can do pretty much anything they want with enough legal muscle. So that may happen.
And I guess I could respond to that in part. If a private property owner came and made an application, staff could consider it at a future date. But again, the impetus for this application in the first place was an encroachment on the town's public access easement. And so the town's willingness to move the easement was out of a necessity to retain the town's property interest as well.
So the ability to even get legal leverage diminishes over time. Okay. But you never know. Rich people can do all kinds of stuff. I've been around here long enough to see it. Let's see. And as far as timing is concerned, you guys may be close, but we have to act tonight because it's in front of us tonight, and we make our recommendation to council tonight. So we're going to do something now. So if anybody has a motion they want to make that includes the legal component and the signage component, I would be lovely to hear
And the
it.
timing, can we make a motion contingent on getting that formal HOA or neighbor's approval?
What I would do is I would make your recommendation of approval contingent on a future acquisition of an HOA letter of approval by the time this gets into the public hearing in front of council.
Okay.
That's a month away.
That sounds really good. We like that language.
I think the timing as well of his sale is also salient to this argument. And if the property owner is not going to execute the signage improvements, then money needs to be put in escrow for the town to do that.
That's not the cost of the sale.
Okay.
All right, do we have a motion here? Rob, you see.
I'm ready to make a motion, but it's very complicated. I'm not quite sure how to word it. Because we have the staff recommendations we want to include. We want to strengthen the signage component of your recommendation. We want to add the contingency on getting the HOA approval.
Yes.
And am I missing one? Then that's my motion.
Bob had suggested as well setting a date. Is that correct?
Oh, how does town deal with that?
We can't, so typically with these land use approvals, there are requirements for recording the documents. And so we cannot arbitrarily pick a date or a deadline.
Can we require a bond to be put in place so that the town can execute those
The signage?
those pieces upon their own purpose?
Could certainly maybe let council.
You can
Approach
leave
that.
that to council. You
Performance
can,
bond or something like that, recommend?
yeah, I think that you can just make it a condition of your recommendation of approval that the signage is installed. Let's see, we can figure this out before
Can we
final approval?
I think
Can we say that the signage has to be in place 90 days from the recording of the documents? Or
Yes,
something like
Yeah, we
that?
can do
Good.
something like that,
sure.
yeah.
Well done.
Yeah.
I think that's, well, because our next one has something like that, so why?
Yeah. That's fine.
So, Rob, take it away.
That's the motion.
All right, we have a motion. Do we have a second?
Is that clear? I don't want to be
The
flippant.
motion is, it's contingent upon the HOA approval. It is contingent upon 90 days past the recording of this document, or prior to the recording of this document,
Yeah.
the signage is posted at the cul-de-sac of Ridge Road.
Yep.
And
The signage should be acceptable to staff.
Acceptable to
Acceptable
staff.
staff, okay.
I think I got
And
it.
that was it, correct? I thought you three.
There's three.
HOA, signage,
for
And
approval,
this, and the other
signage.
conditions listed in the staff
and any
memo.
other conditions listed
All
in
the rest
staff
of the
report.
condition, yeah.
There's no reason to rehash the building envelope? That's good?
It's
I think we're good.
the original, I understand it's
Back to
the
the
original
original.
location, so.
That's a part of the PUD.
Yeah.
Great.
Not going there.
So is that a second?
That is a second.
We have a first. We have a second.
Great,
All in favor?
Aye.
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 great.
Motion passes.
Thank you.
Thank you all very much. You all have a great evening.
You're welcome to stay for the rest of the meeting.
They're all fun.
It's so much fun. Just give everyone a few minutes to change out here.
Stand up too.
Go to the next. Just hold on a second while I get to the next memo here.
Plug?
That last memo is a lengthy one.
Hopefully it won't be that long and I won't need it, but I always bring it.
Here.
If you got 2
Okay,
hours
here
of
we
power,
go.
if we're here in 2 hours, we got problems.
All right, public hearing 263 Park Avenue PUD amendment. James.
Yes, thank you. We have the applicants here this evening. We've got Mark Chain representing the applicant, who is Tim Fortier, who is here. This item is a public hearing on an application submitted by Tim Fortier for special review, PUD amendment, mixed-use parking reduction, and waivers from some of the community housing livability requirements. And it's to legalize 4 dwelling units in the 263 Park Avenue building as deed-restricted Category 1 units. 263 Park Avenue is the Aspen Marble and Tile building that the P&Z conducted a site visit at in May of this year. It's in the Basalt Industrial Park on Park Avenue. The property includes a marble and tile shop on the first floor and received approval for 2 deed-restricted units in 1997 to be installed on the second floor. Those 2 units were constructed, and the applicants also added 4 additional units without the necessary development approvals and building permits. The 4 units that were added are 2 2-bedroom units, 1 1-bedroom unit, and 1 studio unit. And once again, the P&Z toured these units in May. So the applicant has applied to legalize these 4 additional units that were added without approvals, and they were brought in an application after staff did enforcement on the illegal units. Additionally, the applicant added some office space, which is in the form of 3 shipping containers that are on the north side of the building that were added, and P&Z saw those. So that requires a PUD amendment because they're in the setbacks, and so they propose to amend the setbacks. As noted, the applicant requires a special review approval and a PUD amendment approval and a mixed-use parking reduction, and so the P&Z is the recommending body to Town Council on those actions. And as I noted, they also require waivers from some of the community housing livability requirements, as the 4 units were added before the town enacted the livability requirements that we have in the housing guidelines. Staff has identified a series of discussion items that are in your packet. They include consistency with the master plan, the community housing livability requirements and the waivers being requested, the community housing categories, the PUD amendment to maintain the office space, the mixed-use parking reduction that's being requested, public pedestrian access consideration, and then building and fire code improvements that are required. In reviewing the application based on these discussion items, the first being consistency with the master plan, staff believes that these units satisfy a niche in the Mid-Valley inventory as they currently serve and are proposed to serve very low income levels. The master plan expresses in the goals and objectives a desire for a broad range of community housing units, including housing units in the lower income categories. And staff believes that these units, to be legalized, satisfy these objectives. The Basalt Affordable Housing Community Housing Commission, BAC, also supported the legalization of these units. In terms of the community housing livability requirements, the applicant requested a series of waivers. They included a waiver from the installation of 2 burner stoves with ovens, the kitchen sizes, the blinds not being honeycomb blinds on the exterior, and they didn't have storage space. The applicant, in discussions with BAC, consented to venting the stoves and ovens to the outside. They also consented to installing honeycomb blinds, which is a requirement of the housing guidelines. as well as providing a storage shed for combined storage of the units. And then Bach also recommended that the applicant be required to install 2 burner stoves with ovens in the 2 units that didn't have stoves with ovens. And then also Bach recommended the addition of 1 clothes washer and dryer to better accommodate the needs of the 6 units in the building. With regards to the community housing categories, the applicant proposed all the units to be legalized as Category 1 units. Bach recommended that the units be Category 0, which was a new category that was added here recently to serve individuals and families making 50% of the area median income, except that Bach recommended that the existing tenants in the 2-bedroom units could be grandfathered at the Category 1 level for their tenancy. Bach thought that the units better fit as Category 0 with regards to the size and the amenities that were in the units. And so staff has included conditions that reiterate Bach's recommendation on the categories. Other topics for consideration included the PUD amendment to maintain the office space. And once again, there were 3 containers, shipping containers, that were added to the building on the north side of the building. They encroach into the current setbacks, and so the applicant has proposed a PUD amendment to establish the setback at 2 feet on the north side of the building. Staff has included in the draft conditions an acceptance of the setback change with the requirement that the fire separation be improved to meet the building code and fire code requirements to the satisfaction of the building official and the fire marshal. Other topics included the mixed-use parking reduction. They currently have 13 off-street parking spaces on the site, and 17 spaces would be required with the 4 legalized units. And the applicant is proposing to actually add several tandem parking spaces by removing a grass area that currently exists here. This was a recommendation and a requirement of the Homeowners Association in their consent to make the application. And so the applicant has agreed to add these tandem parking spaces. But the applicant does still require mixed-use parking reduction. And so the applicant has provided some data in the application in terms of usage of these parking spaces. And staff has monitored the use as well and observed that the applicant's conclusions that there is sufficient parking and that there typically is several spaces off-street that are available during the day is accurate per staff's monitoring. Staff recommends approval of the mixed-use parking reduction. A couple of the spaces are partially on the town's right-of-way, and so as a condition, staff has included a requirement that they enter into a license agreement with the town for those parking spaces so that the applicant would be required to maintain those parking spaces that are partially in the right-of-way. Other topics for consideration include the public pedestrian access. When we were on site with P&Z, we discussed the potential for a public pedestrian access to come along the south edge of the property. The town has been looking for the potential to have a public pedestrian access from Willets Lane up to the Mid-Valley Center area in the original road bus stop for quite a while, and we've been unsuccessful to this point. There are probably some better locations to be able to get that access easement, but those property owners haven't been willing to work with the town to get the access easement. Staff does believe that this area could serve a good public pedestrian purpose to get those that live in units in the industrial park up to the bus stop area at Original Road and Highway 82. And so the applicant has indicated that they would be accepting of such a access easement to get up there, as long as they received a waiver from the parkland dedication fees in conjunction with that. And staff believes that's reasonable, so we've included that in the draft conditions. Additionally, this public pedestrian access would also have to serve as egress out of the building, because when the storage containers office space was added, it kind of took away the egress that went along the north property line. So not only would this serve as a public pedestrian access, but it would also be egress out of the building. So staff has included in the draft conditions a waiver from the parkland dedication fees for the units in exchange for the dedication of the public access easement there. Other discussion items include building code and fire code improvements. Staff has been working with the applicant on coming up with improvements that are required to meet the building and fire code, since these were built without the approvals of building permits and review of building permits. There are some improvements that will have to be made to the structure and the fire sprinkler system. And so staff has included a condition requiring that those improvements be made to the satisfaction of the town building official and fire marshal. So this evening, staff would recommend hearing applicant comments, taking public comments, and providing P&Z discussion. And you could make a recommendation on the actions to legalize the units and the office space. It should be noted that Bach recommended approval with the conditions that are included in the staff memo, and those include that the units be category 0, except that the tenants that are currently in the units could remain at a category 1. So with that, staff would suggest hearing from the applicants we have here this evening. And let me please stop sharing my screen, and I'll bring up your slides, Mark.
All right, Mark.
Okay, thank you very much. I'm Mark Chain, and I'm helping Tim Fortier, who is the owner of the project Aspen Tile and Bath Gallery. I'm not going to go over the application point by point. You've had it. Some of you have been out there on a site inspection. And there's 3 different applications in there, so I think hopefully you've had time to read through it. I'd like to just point out some things, give a little bit of the history, talk about some concerns with potential conditions, and then be open to questions for you, because you probably have a lot of questions. So this project, the Basalt Industrial Park was part of Eagle County. It wasn't in the town limits originally. I think the industrial park started in '84, phase 2, which this lot is part of, and this, okay, great. Phase 2 was platted in 1988. Tim bought the property shortly after, and he built his building in 1989. In 1994 is when the town annexed the property, and it's a PUD industrial zone district. Tim came forward and through the special review process had 2 apartments approved in 1997, and they're approximately 1,790 square feet of total. In about 2015 to 2017 is when these other units went in. And in terms of the big picture, the lot is 18,734 square feet in size. The building footprint is 5,938. and the business takes up the entire first floor. The containers total about 1,600 square feet, and a lot of it's actually storage. There are 3 different containers in there, and the one container pushes to 2 feet from the property line. The other 2 are 10 feet from the property line. The residences in question would end up being about 1,721 square feet in size. That does not include the hallway. Let me just touch base on the outside first, because we've paid more attention to the outside at this point. While our code representative has been working with Mitch, we're at a point now where more work will be done if there is an approval, and if there isn't, then that building code analysis will go away. The building initially had this 500 plus square feet of open space in the front of the building, and it was fairly useless. It's bluegrass. I believe it's more used by the workers in there, and there were 3 parking spaces to the back, which I'm pointing at right now, and one of those actually even had some storage in it. Spot 13 over here on the side, that's really where the loading and unloading and storage area is. That would have been difficult to make work long term. We were proposing that, and then would sort of try to reduce the size of the loading and unloading and storage. In the back, there's a pretty big hillside. It's about 3,800 square feet in size. It goes up to where the Mid-Valley Medical Center is, and some condominiums. Over here, there is a sitting area, and there's always been a sitting area there, and Tim has improved it in the recent past. There is an egress from the second story out to the rear. Is basically a ramp, and you come down a stairway. There was a stairway down to the back storage area, but that really faced into the containers, and it was not a good safe access, and the fire and building department called that out right away. Some of the improvements from the outside, James did talk about the Property Owners Association. They have concerns with parking in the whole development. But one of their ideas was to do away with the open space in the front and do tandem parking spaces. And those tandem parking spaces would be assigned to individual units, so there's no conflict with different units having the different spaces. This is the approximate edge of the right-of-way, and you can see there are 6 parking spaces that are out in one degree or another in the right-of-way. It's about 12 or 14 feet to the edge of the asphalt there. Tim has cleaned this up. He's also improved this stairway, which goes up to the ditch above. And in the long run, the idea would be to put the emergency access and the steps down here with an easement 3.5 feet in width. And that would be guarded. James has a condition about a 6-foot chain link fence. Our building guy thinks there's a better solution with 2-inch diameter, metal railing, and it could work just as safe and probably be a bit more attractive. I do not have a section of that right now. I have here the community housing standards, the livability standards, and this is the existing situation with these 4 units. And if you want to go and talk about them, we have them right here. One of the concerns that we have is the Category 0 designation. It's pretty low. I'll let Tim speak to it in a minute, but sometimes it looked to me like it would be hard to have people start renting the space. And if they're good employees, they're going to get other jobs, they're going to be bumped up, and we're not sure that would be able to stay there. We would propose Category 1. That also allows Tim to recapture some of the costs that would be incurred bringing the building up to code, which may also include fire sprinkling of the second floor. And right now, his rents are between Category 0 and Category 1. And I just put here some of the notes that I have on the conditions. I've talked about the rental rates at Category 0. Additional washer and dryer, I'll also let Tim comment on that. The pedestrian easement barrier, I would just suggest that if we do get to the point at this meeting or another where you're talking about conditions that have some flexibility with that barrier. And then condition number 5, which is really related to the PUD amendment, it talks about updating the containers with fire separation, what has to be done with the walls, roofs, and foundation. And it implied to me that that needed to be completed within 60 days. I'm not sure if that's realistic. I look at that would probably have to be involved with the last recommendation, which is 180 days to complete the project. But I just brought that out to clarify that. The other conditions, I think we're willing to live with that, and they've been reached out through staff and discussion with them and discussion among themselves. And then we did have a separate meeting with Bach where went over a lot of these things in great detail. And right now, I'd just like to turn it over to Tim to see if he has a comment or two, and I would like you to address the Category 0, and if you want to have comments on the washer and dryer, that'd be an appropriate time also.
Okay, I'm Tim Fortier, and I'm the culprit here. Anyway, on the Category 0, I am honestly, my rents are pretty much cheaper than those anyway. But what really concerns me is how much money a person can make. And with all this employee housing, according to James, the city requires show tax returns of my tenants, right? And I believe that, you tell me if I'm wrong, James, but $35,000 is about all you can make to qualify for Category 0. And truthfully, I ran Aspen Tile for the last 40 years, and pretty much the minimum wage of anybody that actually can fog a mirror is about $25 an hour. And with that said, they really barely qualify for that. And then if they're good, you get a raise. So I really have a problem with the Category 0, not on a financial rent matter, but just on qualifying people that can actually live in Category 0. So that's why I suggested I'll be Category 1. The apartments are above the marble shop. A lot of you guys went through them with me. And, basically, you can only get X amount of rent for that, and I've kept it very low. I get $825 a month per bedroom, and that includes all utilities. So really, I'm like the cheapest rents from here to Parachute, pretty much. So keeping the rents low isn't my problem. My problem with Category 0 is what the town is going to make me do to make sure that those people only make a certain amount of money. And anybody that comes into town, and if they're good, as we all know, you get a raise. So I don't know what happens in Category 0. It might be a question for James, but literally, if he starts off where he makes exactly what it's supposed to make, and then he gets a raise, do I have to evict him? So I really have a problem with the Category 0 for those reasons. As far as the washer dryer is concerned, we have a coin-op washer dryer on the off the hallway upstairs in the apartments, and truthfully, they're coin-op, so I can tell exactly how much they're used. So for 6 units right now, according to what I'm collecting for quarters, right? If you do the math, they're only getting used about half the time anyway. So if I really thought we needed another washer dryer, I'd certainly put one in because you make okay money with a washer dryer. So I don't really think that we need another washer dryer. So that was another thing that Bach suggested. So really, those are my only two things. I did this originally, and obviously I apologize, but when I came here in '97, the town really didn't want employee housing. They didn't need it. And Jody Edwards used to be you guys' attorney. And anyway, basically you guys didn't want it back then. It cost me a lot of money to get what I got. Originally, I wanted 10 studio apartments back in '97. So I ended up with a lot of meetings like this and got two bedrooms. So anyway, so I went ahead and did these, and I apologize for that, but I really didn't think that, the town was, I don't know when you actually came up with needing employee housing. I don't know if anybody was on the board here in '97, but I really kind of had the vibe that, I wouldn't get approved anyway 10 years ago. So I apologize for what I did. I've been a builder for 52 years. Everything was done legally. I mean, in terms of, licensed electrician, licensed plumber, and all that. No one was ever in danger of anything from the building aspect of it. So anyway, here I am today, and I'm asking to have you guys let us keep the apartments and go from there.
All right, thank
And
you.
instead of going through, the application or anything else, I think it'd be more fruitful. Any questions you have, we can answer.
We'll get to that in
And then
just
go
a
that.
minute. But you guys are all done with your presentation?
Yes.
Okay, good. Bob, questions?
A lot changes in 20 years. You built your first 2 units in '97 and the last 4 in 2017. A lot changes in 20 years, so it's disappointing that you still felt there was no need that you would get shot down for building affordable housing 20 years later. On the public access, who is paying for that, for the construction of the walkway and everything?
The way the conditions are structured, the applicant would be paying for the barrier to be added in between the marble yard and the access.
Okay, and then the stairway already exists?
Stairway already exists.
Okay. And the fence is for safety reasons, it appears. Is that
Yes.
correct?
Yes.
Okay. I agree, chain link may not be the most attractive, and we should look at other options, but I had a feeling it was for safety reasons. Are the shipping containers that are the one that is used for office space, is it properly vented, fire hazard approvals, et cetera, and all that is part of the plan to have those all come up to safety standards?
They have to be upgraded per the conditions and per the requirements of the fire district. And
They have to be updated or removed.
Or removed? Okay. I agree that the Bach recommendation is a bit too restrictive, and Category 1 is acceptable to me personally. I'm sure there'll be further discussion on that. Those are my questions. And the application also requires them to get caught up on and pay the fees that they did not pay previously, as well as penalties, correct?
yes, and they've been in conversations with the Mid-Valley Metro District on the water and sewer fees. And so there's a requirement there to get caught
Okay.
up.
I'm good.
All right, thanks. Rob, questions?
Yeah, it's just picking up on, well, I don't know, either one, the easement through, will there be signage there?
Yeah, there would be a requirement for signage.
Okay, that's in the conditions.
Yeah.
Category 1, 0, I don't know, maybe mix is the way to go. And then when we start mixing industrial with residential, like we did across the highway, we had some particular clauses in the lease with people who are acknowledging this is going on.
Yes.
Is that going to be part of this approval?
I'm not sure if we included that in the conditions, but it should be. I
Seems
agree.
like it should be.
But the lease could include that. They
Yeah, it
should.
was just
Yeah.
language letting people know that they're living over a noisy, dusty industry.
It's pretty obvious when you're there, but, you know,
You'd be
I
surprised.
understand. I
Yeah.
understand.
Parking, signage, Tim. Oh, that's all I got.
All right, thanks. Ben, questions?
There's been a lot of loose language about the fire suppression system and the building requirements. What are the building requirements that the department and the fire department, building department and the fire department are looking to impose?
They're still working through that generally. They were working with the applicant's code consultant, and they got to a point where they had had to get through the approval process with the development review before they could go further and get access to the applicant's code consultant. So, what they've worked through to this point is improving the fire separation on the storage containers adjacent to the property line, improving the egress out of the back of the building, which, as we noted, has to come around the south side now because the storage containers block it off on the north side. There have been conversations about the need to sprinkler portions of the building, and there's been discussion about whether there's a need to upgrade the water line coming into the building that's associated with that additional sprinklering.
That was my follow-up question. Has there been any capacity checks on the water line, on the electrical service that's coming in with additional ovens that are being requested and washer and dryers that are being asked for?
Tim can probably...
Yeah, so basically, when this all went down, like a year ago, last June, Mitch, the guy that the building department, he had me get a state electrical inspection. So the state came through and we passed everything. So we had that done to kind of answer that electrical question. And then last fall, they thought that we needed to put in a hardwired full fire system, smoke detectors and heat detectors in the attic, right, and then strobes and all that. So went to the expense of doing all that last fall. So that's all been done. To answer your question as far as the electrical and then what we have done for the fire so far.
But you have panel capacity to add in additional
Yeah.
stovetop units and washer and dryers.
Well, they're talking about two burner stovetop units. So I would have to have my electrician make sure that.
Yeah.
But the building does not have adequate water service to add in fire suppression?
Well, there's another way. Actually, this guy was telling me about it. I've been doing some research on it. And basically, we have part of the marble shop, but anyway, we would use it. It's a huge storage container for the water. So as far as what they're thinking about for a main line, I think we can probably get around with that with just having the water storage on hand.
So you are willing to convert one of your storage units into a water tank?
Well, basically the water tank would be downstairs. It's actually already there, to be honest.
The water tank is already there?
Yeah. Because we do like a recycled water thing for our machines.
For all the cutting?
Yeah.
Yep.
So that part, like I said, I don't have that ironed down, but it's pretty clear that we can get away with a big water storage. Now there again, the other thing about it is that there's a fire hydrant in the back of the building and a fire hydrant in the front of the building too. So the fire aspect of the sprinkler system is something that's going to have to be worked out, but truthfully, I've already spent about $80,000 on this, and until I can, if the town really approves my apartments, then we'll do whatever the town wants and to continue. So far, I've done what they thought I needed to do for safety.
Man, all that fire suppression stuff is very prescriptive in the NFPA. So it's like,
I'm right there with you.
it just says it, and they'll just have to do it.
Yes.
Whatever that may be.
Yeah, I was going to say, there's nothing, I can't get around what they're going to make me do.
Yeah. And we have a bid. We have a bid for fire suppression on the second floor. That does not include, increasing a water line size or probably a tank or whatever will be required. That's not in that bid yet, and we're not really sure everything that will be included. So it's a bid to give more of an order of magnitude, both to the town and to Tim about what it would cost to go forward with fire suppression.
And then the only barrier that that is part of this application is the barrier associated with the containers at the property line. There's no additional barrier requirements between the two changes of use of industrial.
For fire separation.
For
you're
fire
talking-
separation.
That's still being discussed
still
as
also
well
being
in terms of, first floor and second floor.
There may be a horizontal separation,
Yeah.
Yeah.
but their consultant will come up with that, and they'll just be required by whatever we tell them to do, they'll have to do.
Yeah. No further questions.
Okay, Mike, questions?
The easement that would be granted for public access, what requirements come along with that for like does the stairway have to meet building code, or are there requirements on the access provided within that access easement, or what does that look like?
No, there aren't many requirements on that. It can't be made ADA accessible given, the grade. And, it would be up to the building official as to whether there would be a need for hand railing added to the steps going up the slope. In other scenarios, they've interpreted it based on landscaping standards and haven't required handrails in most cases.
Okay, thank you. That's all.
All righty, well, thank you. I have a couple questions. First off, this isn't a question, but I looked at renting a old Victorian farmhouse from Leroy Durock's that was right about there in '87. And the fact that the snow would blow through the walls was kind of problematic, and also the oil stoves that heated it were a little subpar, so I didn't quite take it, but that part of town has changed a lot since then. I wanted to ask staff, I know that this is not your first choice for public access easement, but is this satisfactory?
Yeah, I think it's satisfactory in order to, get a decent access up to the bus stop from the industrial park. I think staff would continue to look for other access options as well. And we've been trying to get other access options for at least 5 years, probably longer. And the other property owners haven't really dealt with us. There is the potential maybe if Willits Bend goes through to get a pedestrian access easement that way, but that's a big question mark.
I was on this board when he was here last time, which is a long time ago, and it was talked about then.
Yeah.
To get access to the highway.
And
at the time.
there was an application on the property next door that was maybe 10 years ago or so, and they came through with a mixed-use building, and they proposed stairs up kind of at the back of their building, and I don't know why our Zoom has been lost here. But they never built the building, so we would have had access then, but.
Okay, well, that's my only question. Let's open up the meeting for public comments at 7:20. And if any members of the public wish to speak, make comments, please step up and, no, anyone online? James?
Let me get the Zoom back here. We lost the Zoom for some reason.
Okay.
We don't have anybody online.
All righty, I'll close the public hearing portion of the meeting at 7:21. And comments, Mike, would you please start?
Sure. I would be supportive of opening it up to Category 1. I think Category 0 in this valley is just very, very restrictive. So I'm open to that amendment. No other comments beyond that.
All right, thank you. Ben, comments?
I agree here about the category 1. I don't know if there's a hybridization that we can discuss to continue to keep rents low while allowing folks of a higher category to achieve rentability within these spaces. Having walked them, I understand where Bach is coming from, but would agree that it is extraordinarily hard to capture that. I don't know what kind of safety amenities we can review here on the separation between the easement and the back of all of the quartz slabs, countertop slabs that will sit adjacent to that easement. Having walked it in person, I certainly understand the operations of lifting, moving, relocating all of those pieces within the boneyard there, and how that could potentially provide concerns with people walking behind those large slabs. No further comments.
All right. Bob, comments?
Yeah, as you guys know, I generally go along with what Bach recommends because that's what they study and that's their job. But I don't know. If you guys felt strongly about sticking with one, I'm probably okay with that. If it was a mix between Cat 0 and Cat 1, I'm okay with that as well. I think washer dryers probably, everyone wants to do their laundry when they get home from work at 6 or 7 o'clock. So it might be only 2 hours a day, but that's when you could need 2. So I might go along with Bach on that one. Signage for the easement we're going to have, and then just something about living in industrial area we're going to add to it. Sure.
I think we have standard language for that.
Yeah, but I didn't see it as part of this, so it just needs to be adapted here. Yeah, that's all.
All right. Bob, comments?
I have no further comments from what we've discussed already. I'm good.
Okay. I will add mine. First off, I think this pedestrian easement has been discussed for so damn long. I'm glad that it happens. There can't be enough of those. There's no way to get through there to the buses, and that's really important. There's a lot of affordable housing down there now, and so I think that's the greatest attribute of this whole project, I think, is where the town gets that easement. I think the affordable housing improvements, I agree with everyone about the mix of categories up to category 1. I think, that complying with the categories can be onerous, so I think I agree with you guys. I would like to add a condition to keep the antique bike in the hallway no matter what. That's a joke. That's a joke, but I do appreciate that
How about
biking.
if we clean it up, you can drive it around, Bill?
I would do that.
All right.
I would do that. I'll bring it home and put it up on the bike stand. All right, let's see. I find all the parking changes acceptable. I don't see any problem with that. I think that the public access rail, we could add some language to how that rail is determined. I think anything other than a chain link fence would be useful. So if they can come up with something good and have council weigh in on that, I think, or have it to staff's approval. I trust you guys for things like that. So I think that's
Yeah, flexibility there.
that's a decent way to do it. Also, if we could, I would support extending condition 5 for these guys a little bit, like to 90 days. They asked for 180 days.
Right.
I think extending it a little bit would be useful, but doesn't, I think we could be flexible there. And that's it. So in light of all this, would somebody like to make a motion that sums this all up?
So a lot we're going to add.
You're very good at this, Ron.
I'll give it a shot, but I think we all need to weigh in here. We are going to support as written conditions from staff, adding our own conditions,
Yes.
which are
Category 1.
Cat
Category
1. Stick with Cat 1. Do you want to throw any Cat 0s in there? Or are we going to just go Cat 1?
Just got one.
Cat 1.
May I just add one quick piece of background from Bach's comments on that? You don't usually see units come in that ask for multiple exemptions from the livability requirements. So that was a strong feeling from Bach that these units they're substandard, they're sub-size, they have sub-amenities. The applicant is going to work towards getting that, but they'll still need to, they're still not going to meet the livability requirements. So that was the reasoning for saying, are these valuable enough for Category 1 rents, or are these really Category 0 rents? And just...
How do exceptions work with approving people that make more income than Cat 0?
Sure. So something that would, just for everybody that's watching, as noted, we would want to maintain the existing residence.
Yes.
However, if the next residents come in and they qualified as Category 0, and then they did get a raise, and now they're Category 1 or 2 or 3, but they wanted to stay in the unit, there's a process for them to go through special review to apply to try to stay. So that would be something that we would look at. These are really unique units, so I think that probably wouldn't be a difficult thing to do. Just when we're considering what the other units are in the mix of the inventory and where we're at, that just might be something you want to know, and that was a hearty discussion that Bach had. So you are certainly welcome to have that, but I just think the discussion about the livability requirements needs to be noted.
But I also think that the documenting components of that that's one thing he's talking about is difficult.
Onerous.
The tax forms, you have to add tax forms.
But the tax forms would have to be done at a Cat 1 level as well.
Doesn't change.
Yes,
It doesn't change regardless
that's true, that's true.
In the housing needs assessment recently identified Category 0, so that's, it wasn't a Bach-driven discussion, as crazy as that sounds.
I think where we're trying to go with this is so people don't get kicked out
Yeah.
because they get a raise. That's kind of how we want this to be. I don't know what mechanism that we're not smart enough to come up with that on our own.
Well, I look at it as more of the market's going to dictate what you can get for units, and they're not as nice as most Category 1 units, so
Perhaps only the studios
I don't,
are Category 0 and the rest we allow Category 1.
Is there a way we could
That was Bach's
leave the determining of this to staff, to find a way so people don't get kicked out? Because I think that's where we want to go.
Well, the way the housing guidelines work and the process works with any of the categories is that when somebody is in a unit, the AMI changes every year in like April or May. And so the category rents go up or down, usually go up in May. And then the maximum incomes go up or down in May as well. And so, what is currently now a Category 0 sometimes pops up to close to where Category 1 was and so on. We haven't seen those go down in the last 10 years that I've seen.
So are you saying there's a certain surety that people won't get kicked out if they get a raise?
No, I'm not.
Yeah.
There is the ability in the guidelines to prove that over the last 2 years of tax returns, if they show income that's not over as an average, even though their current income is over, then they can stay in the unit. But we haven't had a lot of issue with people, qualifying and then staying in units and then bumping out because of exceeding the income, but it happens from time to time.
Do we want to just leave it to staff?
or leave it to council.
Leave it to staff and council, because there'll be a time period between now and council where staff and the applicant can come up with some,
We suggest a mix between category 0 and category 1 to be determined by council and/or staff.
there we go. That sounds
Right.
great.
Yeah, and Tim wanted to
Good job,
make it
Rob.
clear that we've never had a
Okay.
category 0 before, so this is new
It's
territory.
new for us too.
It's brand new, yeah. Like I said, as far as I've been keeping low rents, and I'm not planning on jacking it up because it is above a marble shop, like everybody knows. I just want to make sure that, I mean, you know, I get somebody in there, and that's why I'd rather just have a category 1 for the simple reason of people making money. As far as what I get for rents is pretty much, some of it's lower than cat 0 even. So that really isn't my main emphasis. It's just all about policing. If somebody gets a raise, could just be a nightmare.
But I think our comments will reflect that.
Yeah, I think,
In the minutes.
Mark,
Well, don't the guidelines, I mean, I haven't worked with Basalt for a while, but a lot of them have a provision that if you're a category 1 and you can't find anybody in a category 1 a certain time, then you can increase that in order to get someone. I'm not sure if Basalt has that.
No, you don't have that.
no, Aspen does, I think, but I don't think Basalt does. I think we're all comfortable with where we are right now. So
Yes.
let's
Right.
call that good, and that'll get us to the next level.
We kicked that can, that was good. Other,
What is a cat 0?
what else do we want to add to this motion? Washer dryer, people?
I'm for an additional washer and dryer.
I
I am too. There it is.
I
We did 90 days, right?
in 90 days,
The chain link fence or something more
Safety oriented.
Safety oriented, yeah,
visually appealing.
appealing to the.
Yeah, I also think that understanding that these slabs are going to be sitting at an angle and the operations that are going on in between, that no obstructions can impede this easement, needs to be firmly written in that. Understanding the business that's going on and the dimensions and geometry that he's going to be operating under, I could easily see them hanging something over installing a fence that's 36 inches high or
No, right.
and all of a sudden you've got a slab hanging over that, further tightening the 3.5 foot easement.
Right, no, there's definitely a safety issue there, but I'm sure that will be in the part of the discussions on whatever we come up with.
What's written as a 6-foot chain link fence, all we're having a discussion about is the look of what the fence is going to be.
yeah.
They already predicated 6 feet.
So if it's predicated at 6 feet, then it is 6 foot steel fence or equal.
Could be adjusted to say a 6-foot fence or other barrier as approved by the town planning director.
Sure.
I like that.
Michelle, you okay with that?
Works for me.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Do you mind if I say something?
yeah, go ahead, say it.
Basically, what I was thinking about is just cementing in like down 2 feet, like 3-inch pipe, and then doing a chain link fence with 4 feet on center of the pipe. And we have those right now that we have slabs. And number one, the slabs will be put in standing up straight, nothing leaning over, standing up straight on an angle so they're easier to get from the forklift. And a 6 foot long, 6 foot high chain link fence is more than adequate of what, it's not going to topple anything over. And I kind of want to just restrict the fencing to a minimal because space is of an issue. So safety first, but the 6 foot high chain link fence done right is more than adequate. Tried and true. That's all I'm going to say.
I still think their comment stands.
I think
Yeah,
staff
comment
will
stands.
determine what's appropriate, yeah.
Yeah. Okay, I think that's it.
I think that covers it.
Yeah, okay, so that's your,
That's my motion.
that's his motion, and he's sticking to it.
Can
We have a
can I
second.
ask about
Second.
the amount of time to?
Went to 90 days.
90 days.
90 days, okay, thanks.
One more thing. So is that 90 days after the city council approves this?
Yeah.
Okay, so basically it all starts, the clock starts.
The clerk
I
is
guess I
not-
get
Clock hasn't started yet.
supposedly I get 2 more meetings,
Does not
right?
start
For
now.
the city council?
Yeah.
Right, so after the
Yeah.
last city, yeah, Thank you.
Yeah.
They-
Just advisory.
I was gonna say,
Yeah.
'cause,
They don't make the decision, they recommend to the
We just- we're
council.
just
The
making a
council gives the
recommendation.
final.
Okay. Do we
okay,
have-
so
do we
that's
have
the
a s-
90 days, that's
Do
my,
do we have a second?
Second.
We have a first, we have a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
Motion passes.
We're unanimous today.
Thank you, gentlemen.
thank you guys, appreciate it.
Thanks very much.
Great evening. Okay.
0 and 1 as the term.
Special events code amendments,
Council.
courtesy referral. I don't know whose this is.
This is going to be Carlton.
It's Carlton.
Carlton.
Back in the hot seat.
Thanks.
Thanks, Mark.
All right. So for a little background for you guys. Yeah, we can wait
It's
for
okay.
it.
Carlton.
So I'm back here to discuss some potential code amendments for you guys. For a little background, this process started last year, and through discussions with Post, as well as Planning, Zoning, and Town Council, there have been recommendations to make some amendments to the town code with an acknowledgement for new capital improvements and an advancement of the park system, and with that, having code to protect the town's assets and also to create some clarity for folks looking to utilize town infrastructure as well. So staff has had a conversation with Post regarding the town code amendments before you guys, and staff is seeking feedback from planning and zoning and a potential recommendation to town council in regard to the code language in front of you. So with that, I currently have up the series of 2025 proposed ordinance language. It's about 5 pages long, so I guess we could open that up for any in particular questions that you guys may have, and then we can move to the schedule or the proposed schedule for suggested park facilities and
That's fine. Maybe I'll just give a quick summary of where we're at here.
Could you please?
Yep. The quick summary is that we have 2 different policies right now, a parks reservation policy for smaller events like birthday parties and those sorts of things that don't require closing off parking, small events. And then we have a secondary policy for special activity event permits. There's too many words in that one. That's for things anytime public right-of-way is closed, when people need to close parking. That almost always triggers this kind of permit with a few exceptions on a few certain streets. If there are more than a certain number of attendees, if there's a liquor license involved, so there's certain things there. None of those standards have really changed. What's changing is the policy. We have historically asked that you please submit your special event activity permit 45 days out before the event, because often we will get a permit for, say, a marathon 10 days before the event. It's not enough time for us. It's not enough time to get emergency services. And so that puts us in a real bind because we want to promote activities and events to occur in town. This requires that 45 days, or we have the right to deny your event. We really don't want to do that, but we need to have some teeth to make that happen. Secondly, it's streamlining some of these things. Sometimes there's going to be a park reservation required, potentially in addition to, but maybe not, the policy. And then lastly is increasing the fees. So we're not looking to charge birthday parties more fees. We're looking to have fees for using facilities that have significant waste. You have a marathon, I'll just use that one as an example. And they do a great job cleaning up, probably no fees. They do a poor job cleaning up, they leave all of their refuse for our public works to have to pick up the next day. There needs to be a fee. So it's basically, our goal is just trying to pay for service that we haven't had before, and as we're having increased events and bigger events come into town, we're trying to capture those impacts in a more streamlined and a more specific policy. A lot of this code language has been in informal policy documents, and Carlton turned it into code language for us so that we can actually implement it. It's pretty dry, so that's why there's not a lot of fun here to talk about,
So
but
previously, were these things flat fees, and are they moving to floating fees based upon staff time? Is that fair to say?
So I can refer to that. The fees have been existing for special events, and however, those were also, again, an internal policy, and were far behind our peers and neighboring communities. And so we've now created a schedule that includes both a fee and a deposit for different kinds of events. So those being the facilities reservations, which we're considering, again, like your birthday parties, your retirement parties that are just essentially reserving a shelter or having a reservation on a part of a park for some exclusive usage. And then the special event facilities, those reservation fees and deposits are going to be substantially higher to bring us more in line with our neighboring communities, and also, again, like Michelle said, to account for the greater impact that those have on staff time, on our assets and resources. And so after bringing this initially to council last year, council instructed staff to go back and bump those up quite a bit higher than was proposed initially. And so that's happened here. And then additionally, we've, again, formalized some of this language that's been informal, pretty difficult to enforce. And I guess I'll make one comment on what Michelle said as well. Have picked a few things that were already in the code out and put them in a single location. So some of those changes are coming with the full-scale code update that's going on right now, but this is seeking to take some of those parks-related and facilities-related code pieces and put them all in the same place.
So we're gonna revisit all of this again with the code review?
That's not the intention. This is separate from that.
The overall code review will probably be more on subdivision and PUD
Correct.
sections and mitigation and.
You said
sorry, go ahead.
fees were in line with other towns?
Correct.
What about that 45 days? Are we standard on that?
yeah, in Aspen, we're not Aspen and we're not looking to be there, but it's 60 days or longer.
Okay.
Yeah. And really, very truly, it's about having emergency services have time to look at it. It's just, we're in a really awkward place when they have 2 weeks to look at something, and really the conditions of approval are based on their standards a lot of the times.
What is the review time for Eagle County for special events permits?
I don't know off the top of my head, but it's certainly 30 days or longer.
Okay, so there's no concern about interfacing between the parcels that are Eagle County parcels, but obviously are using town of Basalt services with.
No, because anything that's in the town, our police district will have authority over and will be required to review. They might partner with Eagle County, but it doesn't quite work like that.
Okay.
And
I would piggyback on that and having been in conversations in our technical review committee, oftentimes there's an unfair burden placed from applicants for some of these larger special events on the town, because we want to be good team players here and allow events to happen. But there have been circumstances in my tenure here where applicants are pressuring our review and referral organizations to permit an application that is substandard and that is not meeting the requirements needed to host a safe and an effective event.
So they're
in the
trying to
town.
make lack of planning on their part to be an emergency on your part?
And we would just like to codify this to give us something to fall back on here. So
I stole that from the financial aid office at school.
Yeah.
So is this going to be posted somewhere on the website so people could find it easily? Because this is probably a question you guys get a lot.
How did staff come up with the 50 attendees limit for allowed reservations and sanitary facilities?
Yeah, it's based on our existing facilities in most of the parks.
And, that goes back a long time, at least 10 years. We did some assessment when we originally did the special event activity permit and kind of looked at other jurisdictions and tried to figure out, how many attendees really triggered more.
How are you going to handle camps that are not required to participate in this but absolutely have more than 50 attendees? I think of Gary's Camp, Armady Kittle. You've got sanitary facilities there on site. There is commonly more than 50 people. How are we handling that?
Well, Gary's Camp is a little bit different. Summer camps are different because they're not reserving the entire facility or the structure entirely, so it's not as clear cut. Yeah, they use it quite a bit. You're not wrong. But since the question was about restrooms,
That feels like the undue burden, is that
sure.
those are the facilities that are most common here to use in Basalt, and very common situations where 50 attendees will easily show up,
Sure.
with families included, and now we are potentially putting the burden on police officers to mitigate these scenarios.
Well, not to mitigate the summer camps. The burden is mitigating, is making emergency plans for events and for enforcing parking that's being closed off. So like for a summer camp in a park, for example, we do want to make sure that there are the right amount of facilities. And if there are too many people, then we need to work on that as well. But the 50 people in the restroom facilities has worked because we would know, we would be getting the input that it's overburdened. So that number we feel confident with. The other aspect of this code amendment is really born out of our facility across the street, the Basalt River Park,
Yeah.
and really wanting to manage that. So this is really to have teeth to accept or deny applications that come in on that.
From the special event side, I completely agree. It's more of the discussion about that, the loose informal parties of, that happen regularly throughout our town.
Yeah.
And the things that are in tension.
So, and some of those, those are good things. It's a sign of a good
Yeah,
community.
yeah,
People are
absolutely.
having social events, and we want people to continue to have social events. And if you read through the policy, there's a reference to that as well, is that for the idea for the facilities reservations for those smaller events is to reserve the right to use a facility during a given amount of time without excluding others from using the rest of the park space. The larger events, like the special events, which require an additional layer of scrutiny, are the ones that we're intending to bring to the technical review committee in front of police and emergency services to take a greater look at how many attendees are anticipated, whether security and sanitary facilities, or security services and sanitary facilities will be needed for something like that. And additionally, to give emergency services a heads up that a serious number of people are going to be gathered somewhere. The idea is, most informal gatherings in town are not going to be 200 people. And if they are, they're likely going to be seeking out reserving that space ahead of time, in which case we now have a codified process for addressing that.
Yep.
So putting my business community hat on, I just want to make sure that we're competitive with our neighboring communities, both on price and timeline, if not a bit below the others. I'm sure the folks on Main Street here who just endured 2 years of construction will want to make sure that we're competitive in what our requirements are.
Yeah, they're specifically in line and not prohibitive, although we do really want to maintain the Basalt River Park as a community amenity and not have it be privatized.
And so I would say that we're definitely in line with Aspen and Glenwood Springs, maybe slightly higher than Carbondale and some of the other Eagle County municipalities. We're significantly lower than some of the other mountain town communities, such as Telluride. I'm sorry, Breckenridge and Steamboat Springs have some extraordinarily expensive public park reservations. And so I would say that we are in line with our peers. And then additionally, a lot of the increase in cost has actually been attributed or apportioned to the deposit side of things. And so, again, as Michelle alluded to, that creates a little bit of a defense, so that when we do have people not abiding by our policies, that we're able to recoup some of those costs without passing those, without overburdening applicants. And
So you're saying this will not create a municipal arms race of park fees?
race to the bottom, right?
Yeah.
I think this is both addresses town council's desire to increase the fees, and with consideration for where our peers are at.
So what's our desired action on this? This looks like a town council action in our packet.
Yeah, so this is a town council action. I think, we're wanting to honor Planning and Zoning Commission's review of code amendments, and technically this is a code amendment.
Do we need to vote on this?
We're not presenting it as a resolution, so it's really just a general recommendation at this time.
Okay, so do we want to give a general?
I love you guys
thumbs
getting
up?
the worth of your time and energy and not going to the rat race
Yeah,
and
so you
making the
get our
entities pay.
commissioner's seal of approval on this.
Informal seal of approval.
Thank you.
Like good housekeeping.
That's basically what it is. Thank you. Yeah. All right.
Maybe not quite as weighty as good housekeeping. So we're done with this referral. Commissioner comments and staff updates. I have a comment to make, and this is one of those self-serving comments that we do, all of us do from time to time. There has been talk of a crosswalk between the two bus stops in front of my subdivision for a decade now.
Yes.
And I was wondering, is that a possibility of happening? I was going to say before I retired, but I've already retired, so we've missed that deadline.
In Bill's lifetime.
It's before I die. Can I get from one side of because it's gotten a lot busier on Two Rivers Road than it ever used to be for some reason.
People skipping the lights.
Oh yeah.
It's designed. It has been designed, the crosswalk. We had to have engineers evaluate it and design it, so we had SGM originally designed it, and then it was also reviewed by RAFTA because we had to loop them in because the bus stop's right there. They approved of the design, so we've got a design, and now it's in kind of the town engineer's hands to put it out to bid and get it built. So that should hopefully happen this year.
So it's happening, it's like really happening.
It is, yeah.
It's, yeah.
And just as an aside note, how do you get like the groovy colors like on Lewis Lane?
Well, those.
They do that. Lewis Lane did that?
No, if you like those.
Know somebody.
Yeah, you have to know somebody.
Keep it salty.
Could we get the groovy colors?
We'd have to review that with RAFTA though, so I don't know if we'll quite go there yet.
It is, does CDOT have to weigh in on it? It is still a state highway.
No, it's out of CDOT's hands.
I'll make a motion.
You like the colors?
All in favor of Bill's colorful?
Oh, yeah, thank you. I appreciate that. Will you guys vote on my colors?
The contingency, there's a sign that says this is Bill's colorful crosswalk.
That's my. Yeah, that's my.
Spiraling.
All you MAGA people give me a call. We'll talk about the Bud Light later. Okay, let's move on with not special events, commissioner comments and staff updates.
Okay, well, you've got 2 last summer concerts coming, so that's super exciting. So I highly recommend you attend those. If you haven't seen the art installation in front of the art base, I recommend that you go look at that. And we're working on signage and a plaque to recognize the artist who has passed away that donated that to the town. Her husband brought that in. And while I'm speaking, I'm going to try to find her name. She founded the Aspen Art Museum and helped start the art base as well, and is a major contributor. So this is a very significant piece for a lot of reasons, and also getting our art consignment program just kind of that much more further along and realized. Demolition of the bridge behind 7-Eleven is anticipated to happen this fall. With construction of that project really occurring in the spring of '26, but we're finishing the design of that bridge and the surfacing, and once that's up, you can find it on our webpage.
So the residents will not have a crosswalk there, all the kids going to school and stuff.
They will. I apologize. The demo part is that we have to remove those landscape planters finally.
Yeah, it's just surface level, right? The structure's staying.
Yeah, the structure is sound. It took a little bit longer than we had anticipated to confirm that the structure was sound. And so it's solid. We're good to go. Just finishing kind of the design of the surfacing and how landscaping will fit on there, because those current landscaping planters we had hoped to maintain, but they are not lined on the bottom, so they are draining onto the concrete, and that's caused some of the deterioration of that
That used to be
surface.
a county road.
Oh, I know. Oh, yeah.
Yeah. But that'll be coming, so that's exciting. Hopefully tomorrow there'll be a new swing in the Basalt River Park near the mini golf. We have replaced a tree that was going to take 50 years to turn into something big enough to do anything on with a swing set. So installation was happening today.
I've got a couple things. 5:30 to 7:30 this Thursday at the Basalt Library in the community room. The town manager candidates presentation and meet and greet for the 4 finalists for the town manager role. And then additionally, exciting in my world, our world, an open house at Cliffs Hillside Park from 4 to 6 tomorrow for anybody interested. We will be replacing, hopefully, but at least removing the play structure that is existing there. And we'll be meeting with neighbors and anybody from the public who's interested to hear feedback and brainstorm on what that's going to look like moving forward. So
Do you know how controversial that old play structure it was?
Yeah, I've heard a little bit of the history, but I'm sure I only have a small piece of it.
Can you limb up that tree, the big one, a little bit? My daughter got stuck in it, and the fire department had to come. She climbed too high.
That's awesome.
I'll drop a note to Chris. I'm not
just
sure
like
that's
give me
a
one
part
tree. Just get one
question,
tree limb
but-
gone.
That's great.
That's awesome.
And then one other note, town staff is working with our code consultants design workshop and EPS on kind of an overall code revision. And so we're looking to have kind of a code working group. And it's going to be made up of individuals from the various boards that we have. And so we have one or two identified from the P&Z. So
Sounds like Katie and Cindy to me.
we'd like to hear if you guys want to email us if you're interested in being part of that code guidance committee. Bill's got his hand up, so.
Mike Gregory.
Okay, great.
It looks like Bill and Ben are interested.
Second.
Is that?
Is there any update on the historical preservation code efforts?
Yeah, so I can give an update there. So we have a signed contract with GM Shea, who is the finalist that we introduced to you guys and then were approved at town council. Their efforts are beginning in earnest this weekend. I actually just remembered that right after James mentioned the code updates. So if you guys are interested at the Basalt Sunday Market, they'll be doing a tabling event during the duration of the Sunday Market and engaging with members of the community on the downtown district and on Midland Avenue. So if you're interested in that, stop by, say hi on Sunday.
This coming Sunday.
This coming Sunday, the 24th. Yeah.
You said just this Sunday or the rest of the markets?
It'll just be this Sunday, and then we'll keep you guys apprised of future public engagement as those opportunities come up.
And this Thursday evening is town manager.
Correct. 5:30 to 7:30 at the Basalt Library in the community room. Cliffs Hillside tomorrow,
Will there be
4 to 6. Presentations and a meet and greet on Thursday. Yeah.
And as far as future P&Z meetings go, we likely won't have a meeting on September 2nd. The next meeting we'll have a public hearing at is September 16th.
All right, thank you.
Laura Thorne is the artist.
Pardon?
Laura Thorne.
Laura Thorne. I've seen the piece. It is nice. It's very nice.
All right, are we ready to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
We have first, do we have a second?
Second.
All in favor? We're done.
You all.
The agenda says 7:45. Now, when other people
late.
have meetings.